Yes, people. It's Jacob on the one up top. Before you watch the rest of this video, if you haven't done it already, like, share, subscribe, comment, do all of that. And first and foremost, before I go into today's game at the Amex, I apologise for not coming on last week. For once in my life, I went out with my friends, and that's all you need to know. So there was no way I was going to do a video, I just about watched the game. But yeah, back on topic. We go to the Amex Stadium today, where the result was Brighton 2, Tottenham 2. Now, before the game, if someone said to me, would you take a point at Brighton? I'd always say it depends how we played, because if Brighton played like they normally do, and they can dominate, I've seen them dominate Man City, Arsenal, any team in the Premier League, I've seen them dominate it at the Amex with the personnel that they've had. So if they were going to play where they're on top of it and they're playing the 1-2 tricks around the corner, I would have bit your hand off for it. But if someone said to me that they were going to play like they did against Fulham, maybe take the point, but I want the win. I predicted a 2-1 Tottenham. I weren't far off, but realistically, if you look into the first half, let's say, Brighton, even though they weren't on the ball, which they would probably expect to, I think Hurstler did quite well in the fact that he understood that we're going to try and come there, dominate. We're a confident team at the minute, and nobody would expect Brighton to try and play on the counter, but they were really good on the counter. You see in the first goal with Minte, when they got players like Minte, Matoma, sometimes you think to yourself, you've got to play, counter attack. If anything, with players like that, you'd probably prefer it. I remember when we had Conte, if he had Minte and Matoma and all these guys, he would have massively thrived. But yeah, to be honest, in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes, we played well. I thought to myself, yeah, you know what? We stamped our foot down. Kudus was getting on the ball quite well. But the one person, not one, the kind of people that let me down was kind of Richarlison weren't at it really. And Odegaard, as much as he always has glimpses, I always believe that he's just not good enough to be in the top end of the Premier League. If you're at Burnley, for instance, if he played at Burnley where he was actually thriving, I think if he went back to Burnley or he played for, don't disrespect to these teams, or Wolverhampton or something like that, this would be a player that would smack it for them. But then a Tottenham or a Everton or a Aston Villa would come in and go and buy him, or a Newcastle, and he'd flatter to deceive. So you kind of say, well, you're better off staying where you are. I generally believe he's a bottom half of the league player. And even though we finished in them positions, it's like if we're trying to get to the next level, he's not it. And I feel sorry for him because it's not his fault. Do you know what I mean? It's not his fault that we put a bid in for him. It's not his fault we buy him. And it's not his fault that we don't play him as much as he needs to play. So football's a confidence game, and I just don't think he's there. But what confused me about the lineup, if I'm honest, before I go into the game, was that I don't understand why Sarr, Simmons, and they didn't play. Now at first I thought, okay, you've got to manage numbers, I get it, but our next two games are Doncaster at home and Wolves at home. So I thought to myself, well, go with your strongest lineup, get the result against Brighton, which we'd want to win. Doncaster, you can play your Odeberts, you can play your fringe players like your Archie Grays, and give all the big boys a rest. And then even if you feel like you want to play the big boys against Doncaster, which I doubt you would, but then play the big, rest them against Wolves. So I'd like to think after the result they had today, losing at home to Leeds, that we could probably rest a couple of players and still get a result against Wolves, even though they're kind of our bogey team. So I think that's what's let us down, because I think in the first 20 minutes, if we had that cutting edge, if we had, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but if we had Xavi Simmons and we had maybe Pap Sarr playing, I think we would have dominated the game even more and probably got a bit, had a bit more cutting edge and scored the goal first. Now, if we scored a goal first, you've seen in the Premier League, in every game that we scored first, we have won the game. But when we've conceded first, we've struggled. And the only game we conceded first in was Bournemouth. And from that moment onward, we were finished. And then in this game, especially when we went 1-0 down, I kind of felt, the players' confidence got knocked a little bit, but we were still popping it around. As soon as he went 2, I thought we were done for, if I'm honest. Vicario should be shaving that shot. Like I'm not having that. Minte's goal. We tried to play the offside, but again, Odebert. I'm not trying to pinpoint him, but realistically, he loses the ball when he should have just released it. They break on us. No one's expecting it because we've got the ball, and we get caught off on the offside trap. But if I want to give him credit, Richarlison, I was battering him the whole of the first half, saying he's not good enough, and realistically, he isn't good enough. But he kept digging in. That's probably the only thing I do like about him. Digging in there, and the dark arts that he's got in his game. Got himself a goal, fair play. And if we didn't get that goal 2-0 at half time, I don't think we get the result. Second half, different gravy. We dominated from start to end. Xavi Simons comes on and literally changes the game. And for me, that was good that Xavi Simons came on in the number 10 and made a difference, because Thomas Frank has now got to just start playing him in his position. We've seen him on the left. I'm kind of happy with that in some games. But generally, we need to be playing him in the middle. We've got an issue on the left wing because I don't know who I'd want. I don't know whether I'd want Tell, Odebert or Johnson. To be honest, if you're trying to get into the discussions of winning stuff, the big prizes, or maintaining Champions League football, not one of them is good enough. Brennan Johnson, top goal scorer. Tell, I feel sorry for him, but again, you're not good enough. If you were good enough, Bayern Munich would have had a chance on you. And Odebert, glimpses. Between the three of them, they're all glimpses, really. So, but yeah, you look at the lineup that we ended with, and that's probably how you want to play it. I wouldn't have Archie Brown. I was a bit surprised that Sarr hasn't come on. I don't know whether he's carrying a knock or he needs to be completely rested. But again, I don't understand, because he's not going to be rested for Doncaster. We're resting him for Wolves. I'm not too sure, but we've got a couple of games that perhaps Sarr could have probably missed, and we probably would have won the games. So. Being around, I'll take that, considering we're 2-0 down. The one thing I'm happy with is that we went 2-0 down and fought back, because I got the trauma come back to my mind, especially in the days of Ange. 2-0 down, you're thinking, is it going to be 3, is it going to be 4, is it going to be 5? But we dug in. Wasn't our best performance, but if I'm completely honest, in the grand scheme of things, we actually dominated more of the game than Brighton did. I just think Brighton were very smart, and Hurst has to take credit for that. But at the same time, I think their issue is the same as ours. I think if Brighton had a killer in the first half, we could be talking 4-0, and if Tottenham had a killer, could have been talking 4-0. It's as simple as that. The goals, obviously one came from Richarlison, but for Brighton and for us, a lot of our goals are coming from all over the pitch, which is a good thing. But you stick a killer up front, you win stuff. So yeah, I'm happy with that. I'll enjoy my Saturday afternoon. I'll be able to sit there and think, okay, 10 points out of the 5 games. I'm happy with that. We've got some easier fixtures coming up in the Premier League. So again, I've already said to myself, I'm going to spend this season making sure that I relax, because Tottenham have won a cup. We've got a new manager, and for once in my life, I'm going to give the new manager a chance to recognise what he's got, and I'm going to give him 2 years to get rid of the people that he don't want and implement his style with the people that he's going to want. And he's doing that quite quickly. We haven't seen any minutes from Ben Davies. I think Odebert was given minutes today just to prove to Thomas Frank whether you're good enough or not. Probably hasn't done that. And I just think there's other players that we've got. You can always improve as a football club. You're looking at Liverpool. They've probably got the best squad pound for pound in the league. But if you said to Arne Slot, we'll give you another 300 million, do you think he'd put it back in the kitty? No, he'd spend it, because you can always improve. So yeah, good, decent result considering we were 2-0 down. Those are the sort of games where Tottenham generally lose after 2-0. The Bournemouths and the Brightons. You'd like to think that we should be beating teams like Bournemouth at home anyway. But again, you can't disrespect teams in the Premier League, because you've got your Bournemouths, you've got your Brightons, you've even got your Wolves that can turn up at any given moment and cause you a headache, and you end up dropping points. But that's the Premier League for you. So yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. I'll do a video on Wednesday, Only Fools in Tottenham. and I'll get back to doing a review over the weekend's football, basically. I'm going to watch Man United Chelsea now. Looking forward to the Arsenal-Man City game tomorrow, as well as the West London derby with Fulham and Brentford. So, yeah, make sure you lot enjoy your weekend, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. Jacob on the one up top.